Hola, welcome to the Good News Roundup. Here are today's positive news stories. The ozone layer has made substantial recovery in what is being held as a significant milestone. An underwater cable will stretch over 1,000 kilometers to bring green energy from Egypt to Europe's electricity grid. There is good news from a huge 4-day working week trial. More people are surviving cancer than ever before, and fishing of sea turtles has sharply dropped in the last decade. The ozone layer, along with the polar bear, was one of the early protagonists of the climate crisis. It was back in the 1980s when scientists first discovered that man-made chemicals were damaging the ozone layer with disastrous effects. We were then warned that a vast hole was opening up over Antarctica every year from August to December thanks to complex meteorological and chemical processes. 7 years later, the Montreal Protocol was signed to try and curb the amount of harmful chemicals in the atmosphere. And what about now? It feels like it's been a while since we last heard from the ozone layer. Well, new research from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the US, has found that concentrations of harmful chemicals that damage the ozone layer have dropped, and concentrations of these chemicals over Antarctica are also dropping at a slower rate, but dropping. Scientists at NOAA says it is a significant milestone on the path to recovery, and they think the hole in the Antarctic ozone layer could eventually recover sometime around 2070. This 1,373-kilometer-long underwater cable will bring green energy from Egypt to Europe's electricity grid, running under the sea and using Greece as a gateway. The cable will carry 3,000 megawatts of electricity, enough to power up to 450,000 households. This is very good news because, as you have surely noticed on your bills if you live in Europe, the continent is facing an unprecedented energy crisis. Russia has cut off supplies of cheap natural gas, supplies on which the continent has relied for years. As payback after the bloc imposed severe sanctions following the invasion of Ukraine. Russia was the largest supplier of oil and gas to Europe in 2021, providing around 40% of its total energy needs to power factories, generate electricity, and heat homes.
Μεταφέροντας 3.000 ΜΒ καθαρής ενέργειας στην Ευρώπη μέσω της Ελλάδος, έτσι βοηθούμε την Ευρώπη να απεξαρτηθεί από τα ορυκτά καύσιμα και το φυσικό αέριο. Πρώτον. Δεύτερον, η πράσινη ενέργεια που θα μεταφέρουμε θα είναι κατά πολύ φτηνότερη από την ενέργεια σήμερα.
The Great G interconnection cable will carry electricity produced in Egypt and other African countries using wind farms and solar parks.
Ένα μέρος αυτής περίπου των τρίτων, 1.000 ΜΒ, να καταναλώνεται στην Ελλάδα και κυρίως σε ελληνικές βιομηχανίες. Τον τρίτον να το εξάγουμε σε γειτονικές ευρωπαϊκές χώρες και τον τρίτον να χρησιμοποιείται στην Ελλάδα για παραγωγή πράσινου υδρογόνου.
A few episodes ago, here at Good News, we covered the biggest ever 4-day week trial, which began in the UK in June this year. In partnership with researchers from Cambridge University, Oxford University, and Boston College, who were studying the impact of reduced hours on productivity and worker well-being. Well, the follow-up of that story is that the trial has been supported by 86% of the companies who tried it, while keeping pay at the same levels. In a survey, they say they were likely to maintain the shorter working week once the 6-month experiment had come to its end. 46% of businesses surveyed said productivity had been maintained around the same level. 34% reported a slight improvement, and 15% a significant improvement. Joe O'Connor, the chief executive of the 4-day week global, the initiative running the trial, says the experiment could change the future of work and see the 4-day week put into practice across every size of business and nearly every sector. There are more cancer survivors in the US than ever before. The group's annual cancer progress report has found death rates from cancer have been falling for the past 2 decades, and particularly sharply in recent years. There are now more than 18 million cancer survivors in the US, up to 3 million in 1971. Across every country in Europe too, there's been a continuous increase in 5-year survival rates for the most common types of cancer. This is driven by a number of factors, including effective prevention and screening programs, as well as advances in diagnostics, surgical techniques, and new treatments. Authorities say the growing use of techniques such as immunotherapies, which basically leverage the power of the immune system to fight cancer, has made a big difference. New data bears good news for sea turtles. A new analysis suggests illegal sea turtle fishing has fallen sharply since the year 2000, and that most of today's exploitation is happening in areas where turtle populations are relatively robust, large, and genetically diverse. The research found that between 1990 and 2020, more than 1 million sea turtles were illegally harvested. This went down to around 61,000 a year between 2000 and 2009, and dipped again to around 44,000 a year over the last decade, a reduction of nearly 30%. If you find value in the Good News Roundup, let us know in the comments and share this episode with your friends. And remember, it can be hard to find among the headlines, but some news is good news.